You will need weak auras for hero talents in the War Within. What the hell is this about, and why would we need weak auras? Damn it, weak auras are already freaking ruining rating. Now they're going to ruin hero talents? Let's see what this is about.
Grass. After 4 strikes with Unseen Blade, your next dispatch, or if you're sub, Eviscerate or Black Powder, will be performed as a coup de grace, doing 40% increased damage if the target's phase gain 5% stacks of Flawless Form, which then translates to 15% mastery for 5 seconds.
Whoa!
And you go,
yeah!
But how do you get 4 strikes with Unseen Blade?
Obviously overexcited.
Well, you press Feint 4 times.
Yes.
No, you don't.
No.
Because that doesn't
This
cause...
is old and new.
That's phasing. That doesn't cause that. What does cause Unseen Blades is 1,000 cuts.
1,000
or
cuts.
Flicker Strike. 1,000 cuts being Slice and Dice just gives you
Hey,
all attack.
these double things right here are actually choices that you're going to have to make. So you're going to eventually fill this whole thing out, but where there's 2, it's going to have to be a choice.
It's a chance.
Obviously,
Flicker
you're just going to
Strike,
look it up
take
probably
area
and pick the one
damage
that's
or dodging will do
sims
max
out the
1,000
best.
every 5 seconds. So when does coup de grace happen?
That's all good. Again.
There you
I
go.
fucking know.
Yeah.
WeakAura tell me. WeakAura tells me when it does. So I press the button. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's awkward because you think about the complexity, right?
We are going to be so screwed when like Luxthros and Afanar do their I'm retiring from being the
If
I am no longer the weak or a slave.
Well, if Luxthros retires from WeakAuras, I'm quitting the game. Like I can't play anymore. It's over. I know what I have to do.
But like legit though.
I have to play Holy Priest.
This is bad though. It is bad when weak aura is required essentially to give you the best rotation, right? You shouldn't be required to download any add-ons to play the game at the best way possible. It's okay for a weak aura to make maybe the game a bit easier in a way or something, but anybody basically who doesn't have the weak aura for this to know when to pop this is going to be at a disadvantage, which does suck.
I want to literally say to you, for real.
Or no, I
But
just play prop. It's okay.
I mean, I'm happy to just throw a few things that I want to track onto a weak aura, but yeah, I suppose a lot of the discussion about like add-ons and weak auras feeling mandatory, you then, mix that up with some of the class design stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Achilles, they do feel
and then
mandatory.
think about all of the things you need to track if you are pushing your keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like
A lot of stuff.
it does feel like random bullshit go instead of here's a design you can play around, which is frustrating because fun designs you could play around felt like the goal of Dragonflight.
I don't mind sudden part of WoW rotation and MMOs in general is like being well timed, timing shit out right. Oh, this comes off a cooldown, now you're gonna pop this, do this. That's fine. And if they have this ability right here where it's like, oh, this is the time where you gotta pop 1,000 cuts or whatever it is. If there's an indication of it built into the game, so that way when to when you're supposed to do it, that's fine. It should be built into the game though. The fact that you need a weak aura to properly do your rotation, that's bad design. That's just bad design. Big reason I don't really run keys. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have the proper weak auras, you are at a disadvantage, which is it's bad. It's not good.
And they've just been kind of going, well, if you just a little bit more, now it's random bullshit go o'clock. Like, it's kind of interesting because, like, 1,000 cuts, right? You go, well, how complicated is it that your attacks have a chance to trigger Unseen Blade? It's just, fine, just track it, bro. And you go, well, what about shadow techniques? Because that's auto attacks do a load of shit when you're sub-rogue. So now your auto attacks have a chance to do about 7 different things. And then you have 4 different things on your, like, what do you call it? 4 different things on your hotbar light up or your weak auras light up, and you go, what the fuck is happening? Oh, God.
Yeah.
And what happens?
This was one thing I was worried about Hero Towns doing is like the complication bloat, right? Like it just keeps making the game more and more complicated. Things become more bloated, more complicated. I mean, the success of Classic WoW really does show that more complicated doesn't mean better. Systems on top of systems doesn't mean better. Look how freaking simple Classic WoW is. They open up a raid, that shit gets down like that day. It's not hard to do. Classic WoW is very easy. It is the noob man's MMO. But that's what was so good about it. That's what brought MMOs to the mainstream. That's why people liked it. You just had your simple talent system, your simple spells. You didn't have too much complication. There wasn't bloating yet or anything in the game. That was a good thing. That's what I'm worried about Hero Towns doing, just bloating everything again.
Then, right? What happens whenever that starts to be the player experience again?
I'm not even a classic Andy. I like
Then
retail,
people
but
tune out. People don't want to. Like,
complicated isn't good.
it becomes impossible to optimize because it's all just random bullshit go all the time. And then you lose the interest in actually like controlling what you do. You go, oh, what the fuck's what is it like? What does it matter if I try really hard whenever it's just the random bullshit go meter decided, or like the random bullshit go metronome decided to be on big damage when my cooldowns came up, as opposed to low damage. It's the same. It's like it's a complex design outcome that feels the same as what was it called? I can't remember the name of it. You know the mage talent. That was the one. It was the option in the old talents with Rune of Power. It was just your damage go up and down randomly. They just like tick up and down, and you're like, well, if it's just down when I press my cooldowns, I lose like 4% damage for no fucking reason. But it's not strong enough to hold.
Oh, was that the one that used to rotate? Like it would dot up to 4 and then drop down to 0, and it would just keep doing that over and over. And basically, you couldn't time anything perfectly with it. I think I can't remember what that talent was called. But it would dot up and down, right? So it was just kind of you and your luck if your rotation lined up perfectly when it was at its peak. And then you popped all your cooldowns and shit. But you really couldn't time it other than that. You just could stand there and wait. And you just had to kind of hope that things lined up perfectly, which did suck. I've heard that this is a problem with Outlaw Rogue specifically, that there's a lot of RNG involved with roll the dice and shit like that. I don't play Rogue, but I have heard this problem before. And yeah, RNG involved in your basically rotation and your DPS output does suck as a mechanic. It does. Critting it's RNG, yes, but there is an aspect of, well, you can build up crit, right? You can add stats to your and that'll make it more likely to happen. That's fine. But basically RNG involved in your rotation, that sucks. There's no way to change that. There's no way to affect it. It just is what it is.
So you're just like, I've just got a low dice roll my damage.
So it's just a thing then.
This is why
it's
you go back to season of Discovery. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just
a lot
a
of people
thing that happens, which was the point. It was Rune of Power's gameplay. This one, Encanter's Flow. Yeah, that was it. It's like, okay, well, Rune of Power's gameplay and
Encanter's Flow.
Like,
Yeah, that's what it was.
What the fuck are you doing? What is this? I'm so happy Rune of Power's gone. Just a side note. But like, yeah, I feel like it's difficult to optimize around, and that'll just kind of put people off from trying to optimize.
You can't get
around
better at it.
And this,
There's no way to get better at it.
because this isn't like gameplay complexity. It's just stuff complexity. It's just simulation craft complexity
Yeah.
more than it feels like actual like choice complexity, which is where I ultimately, but like my tirade against these ultimately comes to that point where you're like, there's nothing wrong with the idea. It's just that the execution feels a little bit like, why is it tweaking just numbers seemingly fucking randomly? It's like, here's your damage and your damage on the seventh night of like the full moon. There you go.
Yeah.
Like the 8th full moon on a leap year, bam, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
you do an extra 7 damage. You're like, what? And then it kind of goes, well,
It's not
It gives the player no control.
it's inelegant. And then it goes, well, what's the design goal here? Is the design goal to make it so ridiculous that it doesn't matter to be optimal anymore? Then you're doing damage to the concept of like actually playing your game for mastery. You're making your game like because I always end up using fighting, even though fighting games are PvP. I always end up using them as like a comparison because they've been through the whole ringer of like design complexity and ease of use and you know how hard is too hard, how random is too random, and you just like you go and play a little bit of like Dungeon Fighter Online or DNF Duel and you're like, what is this absolute clown show? Or you're playing that like Sailor Moon S fighting game. You're like, what do you mean? It's just completely half random half the time, and most of the skill element is removed by it just being a fucking clown show all the time.
Nice.
And then you've got
Sounds
games
good.
that are a lot more like purist, and you're like, okay, well, what do people actually like? People seem to like a little bit more when there's some combination of simple to learn and easy to learn and hard to master.
Yeah.
But it feels like why are you throwing? Like
That's what classic WoW is. That's what vanilla WoW was. It was easy to learn, hard to master, right? That was the main thing. Like before WoW, before classic came out, MMOs were considered like a hardcore player's like deep nerdist game genre, right? Like the only people who played MMOs before World of Warcraft came out were like the deepest of gamers. They were intense. That shit, you would lose everything if you died. Things like EverQuest, like that was just for like very hardcore gamers. When WoW came out, that brought MMOs to the mainstream because it was easy to understand. It was such an easy UI. Oh, you quest, you do this stuff, you learn how to play it. It was a very easy game to pick up. But, of course, when you saw that paladin in all judgment gear just chilling in Ironforge, you know that guy, he's at a whole nother level. He's mastered the game. He's mastered it, right? And that's how WoW was. It was very easy to learn, hard to master kind of thing. And that was what was so nice about it. Now, the floor has been raised so much that WoW is no longer an easy game to learn at all. You got to go to WoWhead. You got to download your add-ons. You got to figure this shit out. You got to understand how this rotation works, how these mechanic works. You got to soak this shit. You got to dump this shit. You got to DPS now. You got to hide now. There's so much more to it. There is so much more to it. It is no longer just an easy game to pick up. Now it is hard to learn, hard to master. That's what it really comes down to now. I mean, you watch some people play on Twitch. There are so many weak auras and add-ons on their screen. I can barely see. I got to look through that shit to be able to see the game. I can't even see the game anymore. That's how bad it's gotten. And I feel like hero talents might just add to that. I'm not being like a negative Nancy. I still think hero talents could be cool. That we haven't tested it yet, so you can't really... But I'm just worried that it's just overcomplicating an already overcomplicated situation. That's what I'm worried about.
Away by having stuff...
And obviously adding RNG to things always makes it worse.
Complexity? Is it too much of a track? Does it matter
no
if
more
people
pump
track
and
it?
dump, yeah. That's the best feeling. Pump and dump is the best.
It doesn't matter if people are tracking or not.
No more pump and dump and no more tank and spank. And unfortunately, that was what was nice about fights like Ragnaros and shit. You just did what you did. Now it's not like that anymore.
Are you turning damage output into RNG? Why are you kind of doing that? And you're not, right? And you're kind of not.
Yeah.
Because it should even out across good players and bad players. Because where is skill in World of Warcraft actually come from? Where does it come from? Does it come from you being able to do your damage optimally? In terms of your rotation to perfection? Does it come from, being able to do your damage optimally by, as a caster, say, reducing downtime by pre-moving and mastering your movement mechanics?
Yeah. Skill in WoW comes from the balance of doing a mechanic and high output. If you're a DPS or healing. Right? If you're DPS or healing, if you're doing the mechanics and your output for the raid is crazy high, or for the party, if you're doing a Mythic Plus, is crazy high, that's a highly skilled player. If you do one and not the other, you're shitty. And then tanking, it's just about surviving and doing the mechanics. If you're surviving and doing the mechanics, you're a good tank. Otherwise, you suck.
Is it more from... Does mastery come from...
I would say more things like that.
Yeah, does mastery more come from, being able to hit your stun properly in an M+, which means instead of dodging, you have to do all your damage?
Yeah, that's part of doing the mechanics,
That's the kind of thing of, like... I would love to have a really long, in-depth, discussion with the designers. Maybe even, have... I don't even know who it would be on the team, but what's the actual goal here?
Well, that's the problem. And actually, one of the things I was going to say earlier, you were kind of wondering, you were talking about the complexity at high end, the execution complexity also included in that, and then all of this. You can then maybe think, well, is there a big vision that's unifying these things together, or is it there are people working and making execution challenges, boss fights, so they're doing that, and then there are people doing this. They're both doing their thing, but
I wonder
how do those
they got to be communicating with each other,
and maybe then that's where some would say it's coming together at a place where there is a lot of stuff, a lot of complexity, but maybe sometimes a lack of elegance. Maybe that's
makes sense.
Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. So I said maybe.
Yeah, that's what I would love to. I would love to I'd love to just see, even internal documents of how much has there been a meeting for, say, the War Within. Was there a big sit down and Ian sits and brings all the design and all the encounter designers, the class designers around and goes, right, well, here's we're gonna go to a retreat for the 3 weeks of we're gonna hammer out what playing this game actually means, or is it kind of what's the term I'm looking for?
I wonder, what kind of meeting they had when they did hero talents, because I feel like it goes against everything that they've learned. They talked about how, talent bloating was a bad thing, so they stopped doing that. They shrank talents down. If you remember, I don't know if it was Miss or what, we went through the phase where, we only had, 6 rows of talents to pick between. And then they were like, oh, maybe we shrunk it down too much. They brought it back. And then honestly, when Dragonflight came out, I thought that was the best version of talents we've had in a long time. I actually think talents right now are great. But then they went on to go beyond that, and they were like, okay, let's add more talents with this new hero talent system. I just wonder, like, why did they not learn from this before? Like, I thought overcomplicating talents was a bad thing. That was like too much. I feel like we're going in that direction a little bit again. And I also thought that they agreed that having systems that are not evergreen is a bad idea. But now you essentially have 3 talent systems. You're going to have them for the rest of time because you said you don't want to add systems that are not evergreen anymore. So now you're going to have to pick your class, right? You got your class talents, then you got your spec talents, and now you're going to have your hero talents. You're going to have to triple talent your way through every expansion for the rest of time. I don't know, man. And then balancing too. It just makes balancing that much harder. Because now you have specs within specs. You got to balance that shit out. Oh my god. It just seems like they made this way harder than it needed to be for themselves. Azerite armor kind of did this shit. They got rid of it. Yeah, but when they released Classic WoW, everyone's like talent trees. So we got big talent trees again. I don't know. Those trees look freaking insignificant compared to what we're about to have. So yeah, I guess it's all about perspective.
I don't want to say accidental because that sort of has a negative thing to it, but I can't think of the other word. Is it kind of emergent? Emergent, that's the word. Is WoW's gameplay an emergent property of all
exactly.
of these teams doing stuff separately?
100% in my view. 100%.
That's why I look at all these different things and go, it feels like it kind of feels random when the game feels good to play and bad to play.
Unreal.
Because these are just different things moving.
There will be a stat squish for sure, but I don't know how that's going to affect talents. There's still going to be the same amount of talents, it looks like. Do you think they'll be able to do a trilogy with some sort of reset shift for WoW 2? Maybe. I mean, the World Soul Saga could be the end of WoW as we know it. It could be, certainly. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. You know, WoW does need to maybe take a step forward to go into the future from here on out. So maybe they did this with the thought of, oh, well, this is only going to be for 3 expansions and then it's done. But they said all content should be evergreen from now on. So I don't know. It depends on what their plan is. Chaos Sauce could be. Not entirely, but a few seasonal talents, maybe. I think Ian said there was a stat squish for Midnight. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we are approaching that point where we do need another stat squish. The numbers are starting to get pretty big.
Live each other all around. I was like, oh, sorry, you had the bad combination this time. It's like, do you roll... Not even
Smaller
like,
numbers
do you
are
roll
easier
3
to balance.
dice?
Yes, for sure. And they're
in
easier
terms
to
of
understand.
like class encounter and dungeons. This is a really, really loose example. But like you roll 3 dice, right? Just normal 6-sided die. It's like, okay, well, there's a 1, a 5, and a 2. Oh, the game's shit. But how do you get the game to be good? Well, you need to roll a 1-1-1 or a 3-3-3 or a 6-6-6.
Yeah.
So you're like a 1-6-6 and the game's like, oh, it's okay.
Fun Viking, thank you for the sub, man. 3 months, Death Knight of our Scourge, thank you. He's totally right about this. The more systems you add, the less likely it is that you're going to hit on every single one for the game to be good. Right? It's like you got to hit 3 times now for the game to be good because you got 3 sets of talent systems. Whereas before, yeah, you just roll 1 dice. Yeah, sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't, but it's easier to get it. It's easier to hit it when you're just rolling 1 rather than having to get 3 right.
Hey, but it's not great. And it's like how
Thank you
close
for
are
the
those
fun.
numbers
Yeah,
together
Mikey,
in
thank you
their
for the
intent. And it feels slightly kind of just emergent, just roll the dice every expansion,
It is a bit of a-
every patch to see what happens.
Everyone's going to make their thing, and we'll hope for the best. But
It feels like that, and like I'm sure they talk to each other, but I imagine they're also a little bit too bogged down.
well,
with
it's game
what they
development
do.
at this scale.
Yeah,
even
exactly.
even this applies to the narrative. Like the Trader's Rest story, it's like fine in a self-contained way.
Oh, Tidewell, that is 100% true. No matter what they do, the community is going to complain. Yes, that is true. And by the way, when we say community, the truth is there's a silent majority that enjoys the game, and then there's a very vocal minority that always hates on everything that happens in the game. That's the truth. And that goes with anything. That goes with politics. That goes with whatever's going on. Usually it's a very loud minority that you're hearing. And with hero talents, I understand the concerns, but I'm not like the game is dead. Oh my God, it's over. They've ruined the game. No, come on. Yeah, calm down. Calm the hell down. No, it might not be a great system. We'll have to wait and see. Could be fun. Who knows? Maybe we say hero talents is the best thing ever. But it just, from an outside perspective, before they add it to the game, it just feels like it might be a tough undertaking. And they might have complicated things they didn't have to. That's it. and complain they will even before the content is well, this hasn't even hit alpha yet. Nobody's tested this shit out yet. So that's the funny thing about, oh my god, the world's fallen apart, everything is over. Most of the haters aren't even playing the game. Very true. Yeah, there's some people who have actually made hating on WoW their personality. It's very weird. But they will just go, I know, because I post on YouTube. I post videos on YouTube every day. And I know there's people in the comments section who don't play WoW anymore, and they will literally click on a WoW video, go into the video, go into the comments section and comment, oh, you guys still play this fucking stupid game? I'm like, Jesus, man, you know when you comment on these videos and click on them, the algorithm's just going to give you more WoW content, right? And you clearly hate WoW content, so I don't even know why you're doing this to yourself. Yeah, this is like literally their personalities, just going into anything that's to do with WoW and saying, dead game, game's over, losers. Yeah, I don't get it, but that's the WoW community for you.
But then you're like, wait... So everybody
again, they're also a
actually
minority.
Knew the Drakthir were about, and no one fucking said anything. Also, why is Neltharion acting like such a villain at this point? And it's, you know, there's like quite a few issues with that story, and the reason is there was direction from maybe a feature lead in making that, yeah, but it wasn't like a big intended story. You know, it was just a story that people made as they were working in the game. They're like, well, it doesn't fit that well. It's like, well, yeah. It's just like how they removed that the Arathi humans in War Within have been fighting the Nerubians for centuries. They removed that from the website. Because your point about, like, they're Nerubians. They live up in Northrend. How did they get from there to here? War of the Spider. They lose, they flee, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they removed the line of the hundreds of years because it doesn't really make sense for Nerubians
be there.
The timeline wouldn't line up anymore. He's talking about lore timelines lining up properly. Yeah, they deleted the 100 years thing because, it wouldn't make sense anymore because 100 years haven't passed. And then Nerubian timeline. You
know, whatever. You just think like, okay, well, they probably removed the hundreds of years reference to...
That's okay. I don't care about that.
Well, I mean, who fucking knows? Who fucking knows? I just, you can't really trust it. Because you don't know, like, well, was it hundreds of years? I don't know. They've removed the marketing copy. Does that mean they haven't worked out the story yet? Are these a different group of Nerubians? Are these Nerubians who fled before, during, after the War of the Spider?
I'm okay with this, with this retconning stuff that sometimes, shit, it happens in real life. Shit in real life gets retconned all the time. They'll be like, oh yeah, dinosaurs only existed for this long, and then they find another fossil that actually... They found out dinosaurs lived another 100 years longer than they thought they had before the asteroid hit or after the asteroid, whatever. That shit happens all the time. Oh, the Egyptians, they were around for this long. Oh my God, we discovered Egyptian artifacts that are actually, existed 200 years before we thought the Egyptian civilization existed. Retcon. Yeah, IRL retcons. They happen. So I'm okay with them saying, oh, Nerubians were around for this long. Oh, actually, we got to change the timeline a little bit. Turns out it didn't work out the way we thought it did. Shit happens. I'm not mad about it.
Or was that a copywriter who was
my work at Retcon every day
and thought that sounded cool, and then no one
it does,
and then no one from the lore story.
Yeah, patches and retcons they happen in IRL too.
Tasked with go over this with a fine tooth comb because they were showing it. And went, it's fine. It's fine. Just make it live. I'm tired.
Yeah, and then it gets changed because somebody fires somebody's message and they're like, you know what? That is a problem. We haven't made a call yet. Remove the line.
Yeah,
and I suppose I think a lot of it just does end up being bottom up. Because that's one of the few ways you can actually make game stuff at this scale. Because it's got like think about the number of staff working in this game. Like how
massive.
hell can the director of the game actually keep up with all that on a one-to-one basis?
Happens in all big companies.
One-to-one is obviously impossible, but like even team lead to director, like it's a quantity of people, right? Like it's really hard to get a cohesive. It must be really hard to get a cohesive design.
Yeah, because you would need
that many motherfuckers making a game.
Because you would need to hire
by the way you just said
people
that
whose job it is to keep cohesion.
Yeah.
Which basically means you have to have a lot of people working under Ian that have jobs that go, well, what is my job? My job is to report to Ian and pass messages and vibes up and down the chain consistently, or either we work Ian into the bin. It's like one of the examples is, and I'm
only
like
ADs, right? Like assistant directors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I only bring up FF14 in this example because it's one of the games we have. It's a similar enough game in a bunch of ways, and we have insight into the production because Yoshibi talks about it, and like that man just runs himself ragged, checking everything. Like he's just like, yeah, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. Nothing escapes him because he's got the whole like fine tooth comb over it, and clearly he's aged 500 years in like the 10 years he's been on that project.
And also,
so clearly like that
has that scaled? FF14's kind of suffered a bit when FF15 has
16. Yeah.
16. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's a case of like, is that sustainable at 500 devs pushing out content all the time?
Probably not.
I have absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. I wouldn't suggest one way or the other because I literally don't know. But the winds are blowing and it doesn't really seem that way to me.
Yeah.
Which is why we look at like, 'cause I saw someone mention the Larian Studio CEO there, and you go, yeah, they had a set of circumstances that allowed them to make one kind of more or less holistic vision in Baldur's Gate 3. And they like orchestrated themselves to make it that way, and they had the time and the budget to do so comfortably, which is not the case for Blizzard under Microsoft. Under
Well, they don't have the time. Yeah, Microsoft Blizzard. They don't have the time though. You got to get content out, so you can't just take your time with it. Like say a Baldur's Gate who's just releasing a giant game all at once. Yeah, timing matters.
Which is
definitely.
Sorry, is that product slightly late? I'm going to kill all of you.
So yeah, I think we're just trying to do a bit of trying to explain reality.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the trying. We could also talk about the Diabloist Warlock.
Yeah, Diablo's Warlock actually looks cool. That was a W. In terms of hero talents, they look like they got the best ones yet. But overall, my opinion on hero talents, we have to wait. Now, I've said it before, I'm just worried about it because I feel like they're just overcomplicating their jobs that are already complicated when it comes to implementing systems, evergreen systems, and balancing it all. I think they just made a big job for themselves for no reason. But I'm not going to say hero talents are shit because I haven't tried them yet. I got to try them before I can give a legitimate opinion, and this shit hasn't even in alpha yet. So I think people just need to calm down, and we'll see what happens.